One of the most important questions right now is what does it mean to be human in the age of artificial intelligence? But the way I want to start this out is to ask, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ayush. I think one thing it means is that whenever we're in the presence of another human being like you and I are today, we're on sacred ground, like sacred territory. This is our space. So that's one thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is that we're all fellow travelers in embodied existence. You and I are different. We have different backgrounds, different ethnicities. We grew up in different countries, et cetera, et cetera. I'm 48 years old. You're half my age. I'm 48 years old. I mean, there's so many differences, but those differences are meant to bring diversity and beauty to this experience of life. And they do if we allow them to. What they do not need to be, though, is our collective undoing as humans. And I think that in the age we're living in 2025, with the almighty algorithm, let's say, controlling so much of the data and information, the news that we receive, we're hyper focused on differences. Again, those differences are beautiful, and I'm not minimizing the diversity, but they're not meant to drive us apart. In fact, hopefully they can bring us together. So I think that those are some of the ideas around being human that are special. Let me say one other thing. I just launched a book, the last book written by a human, and I talk about there how the one sentence thesis of the book is that as our machines become more and more intelligent, we as humans must become more wise. And in order to do that, we need to rely on what is uniquely human. We all have a body, we all have relationships. We have nature to experience. We have emotions. I mean, we have quote unquote technologies that no machine, theoretically, at least in our understanding, will ever have. So it's relying on those things that do make us human that I think is critical in the age of AI.
For sure. And I do want to touch on a lot of the points that you make um, in the book. One of the things that I want to do before we get to the book is talk about technology before AI, humans before artificial intelligence, because AI is kind of the perfect encapsulation, I guess the immaculate conception of where we are right now. But were humans losing these faculties before artificial intelligence and AI just kind of exposed it? Or was this as soon as AI came on the scene, then we saw the degradation?
Yeah, I talk about in the book how I believe that AI is a cosmic mirror to humanity. And so I think we've been losing it long before this. But what AI is gonna exacerbate that, and I think it's gonna reflect that back to us. And as you know, Ayush, a reflection can be a powerful thing. In that reflection, we're able to see our own eyes. You can't see your own eye unless there's a reflection. We're able to see ourselves more clearly if we'll look clearly, and then we're able to make changes, to pivot, to change what we don't like or don't see, and realize maybe the harm that we're causing each other, the division that we see in ourselves, the trauma that we each have to overcome. And I think that reflection allows us a powerful opportunity, both as individuals and as a collective humanity, to lean into our heroic journey. So I think that AI is accelerating the human heroic journey. And that's what I'm excited about. I mean, it's an exciting time to be alive. It's a hard time. There's enough challenges to go around, but it's an exciting time to be alive. So I think that was happening already. What I think AI is going to do is highlight that unwinding and hopefully through that reflection allow and or cause us to come back to ourselves, to come back to our humanity, to come back to the beauty in the messiness that it means to be human and to be alive.
Well, what is that beauty and messiness of being human and being alive? I feel like as we use more and more different kinds of technologies, whether it's social media, whether it's artificial intelligence, we're kind of refining the human experience rather than allowing it to be this raw, tangled, chaotic mess. And I completely agree with you. I'm writing a book right now, completely different, called The Transcendence of Money. It's about cryptocurrency. It has nothing to do with AI, but
That's cool.
the interesting thing is in the preface, I wrote, I think it's the second last sentence of that preface, powerful technology is dangerous if the wisdom to wield it is not proportional. And so you and I are talking about the
Yeah.
exact same thing, different language, different
Yeah.
context, different technologies, but
Yeah.
the actual concept is fundamentally the same. As humans,
Yeah.
we're so good at making better technology, but we're completely horrible, at least right now, at being able to understand how to wield it. It's almost like we're building in a blind fashion. Do you contend with this point?
I agree with what you're saying. We are all blind. We are all grasping for what's going on here. We're on, shaky water, a little bit of a shaky foundation. Like, what is exactly going on here? Again, I think this discomfort allows progress. The book is broken out into four sections. And those four sections, I think, outline. I'm a venture capitalist. I've invested in hundreds of tech startups here in Utah along the Silicon Slopes. And I've seen this process repeatedly. And interestingly, I think it also mirrors, let's say, our spiritual journey or the heroic journey that we're on. The first section is disruption. So change is the only constant. So, how do we deal with change? Do we deal with it with as much ease, love, and grace as possible? Or do we fight against it? Do we live in resistance? Certainly, AI is going to, bring us further into that. Then there's a chance for reflection, again, the cosmic mirror. And then the third section is transformation. So the point is, once we accept the hero's call, quote unquote, once we lean in to our uniqueness, to the beauty and messiness of what it means to be alive, that's when evolution can occur. And that's what I talk about in the last section is evolving our main institutions. So families, education, politics, capitalism, or our economic systems, and even reforming religion. So I think that I think that our ability to come back to ourselves, to see ourselves more clearly, allows us a unique opportunity. I think AI is a crucible. It's kind of a judgment day, a metaphorical, let's say, judgment day for humanity. And it's our opportunity to step through this together. And like I said, with hopefully with as much ease, love, and grace as possible.
Well, not to be a cynical person or a pessimist or a nihilist, but is that the
Uh,
likely outcome or scenario for us given where we are right now? And it's
uh,
so because I hate when I have to ask this question, but it is a very important question to ask is are we even on the path? So we know that we have artificial intelligence and powerful technology. And again, we're going to be talking about that a lot, but what does it even mean to have the wisdom to wield something in a way that has love and grace?
yeah. I mean, I think that we're kind of raising AI up right now, if that makes sense. Like we're creating it, we're developing it, we're pointing it towards things. And we can either point it towards division and hate, greed, power, or we can point it towards love, human flourishing, and what I think is a much more base level of this existence, which is, I would say, like our divine unity, our divine oneness. We are all connected energetically. And if we point AI in that direction, I think that it can be an ally to our own awakening, an ally to our own evolution. So uh, I feel all those feelings. I am pessimistic a lot of the time. I can head towards nihilism. I'm a bit of a philosopher. That's what this book is, really a philosophy book. And so it's easy to go down that road. I almost don't want to answer your question, Ayush, because I think the answer is for everyone to decide themselves. Are we on the right track? Can we make it, quote unquote? Um, it sure doesn't feel like it to me. It doesn't it doesn't feel like so, we could go through all the cynical things, all the arguments why, for, or against. Here's what I'll say though, Ayush, that I know for sure. So here's my answer. Some things are worth our very best efforts, no matter the outcome. So really the outcome isn't totally up to us. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. It's up to us collectively as humans, as the human race. And regardless of whether the outcome is, whether AI takes us to this transcendent age or AI destroys us, I'm taking two ends of the spectrum. Um, I'm going to be very glad. I can die peacefully. I can move on to the next, journey or to whatever's next for me. Or if I gave my very best efforts in an endeavor that I believe in with my whole heart and love. So again, whether the outcome, ultimate outcome, is transcendence or destruction, my work is the same. What I want to do is the same. How I want to show up is the same. It doesn't really, it kind of doesn't really matter.
It's interesting. You're speaking in such spiritual and philosophical ways and using such spiritual and colorful language. And the framework that you're using of transcendence and death is interesting because you created imagery of it being on two ends, opposite ends of the spectrum. But being spiritual yourself, you're very aware that you can only achieve transcendence through death. What
Yeah.
does that look like? And maybe death is too much of a word because as soon as we bring up AI and death and civilizational destruction, people are like Terminator, you know, robots
Yeah.
taking over. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about sci-fi hypotheticals from Hollywood. But we are talking about a complete reconfiguration of society. But what does that look
Yeah.
like? How do we have to kind of lose ourselves to find ourselves in in a civilizational context?
Yeah. Dude, I love these questions, man. Good on you. This is so cool. I love talking about these things. I believe that existence, we could even say the, again, quote unquote, existence of God or the universe, whatever framework you like. And or if you don't even like that framework, just take it as a human. It is a never-ending cycle of life, death, and rebirth. So you're exactly right. Like the breath mimics this life, death, rebirth. The rising of the sun and setting of the sun, the seasons, nature is showing us so much of what really is. And so you're exactly right. Without a quote unquote death, there can't be a rebirth. Without life, there can't be a death. And so, in this never ending cycle, I'm saying both in micro ways and in macro ways, this cycle of life, death, and rebirth is always with us. What we get to decide is how we approach and or go through those stages. So, how painful, how chaotic, how destructive will the death of humanity here, I'm saying in quotes, like the have to be this time. I argue in the book, I'm, praying and meditating in my heart, and I guess I'm arguing and saying we can make it beautiful. It does not have to be ugly. A new earth, so to speak, is coming, I believe. A new, you could say, humanity is being birthed. I think this is the spiritual or cosmic purpose of AI. And so, but we as individuals and again as a collective get to decide how that goes, how ugly that is. And I hope we choose the better part this time around. I hope we, I don't want to overuse the phrase, but I hope we go through it all, both the life, death, and rebirth, with as much ease, love, and grace as possible. Rather than pointing our guns at each other, metaphorical or whatever, rather than tearing down another, rather than highlighting the differences among us and making our tribe special and your tribe isn't. Our tribe is right and the best. Your tribe isn't. Is us against you. No, it's not us against you. It's us together, like we're going through this together. What do we want to create together? And how are we going to handle this never-ending cycle that, by the way, only rolls out in the present moment? It rolls out in every present moment, life, death, and rebirth.
So, coming directly to the book, one of my favorite quotes from the physicist Brian Greene is, "You never finish a book, you just give up on it." And as a fellow author, I 100% agree with this. Where in the book do you feel like you gave up on it? And again, we're not talking about gave up on it as this is too difficult to write or you don't have passion for it, but at some point you have to cut off the thought leadership for that specific book. Was there a point
Yeah.
like if you could have gone a couple of steps further, what revolves around in your mind in terms of putting that out there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this would be the best answer I could give. I viewed this book again. I'm an entrepreneur. I built several billion-dollar companies. I ran for governor in the state of Utah during the pandemic, lost during the pandemic to two very well-known politicians. I was an outsider, but so that's my background. I viewed this book as a little piece of art for me. Whether anyone else receives it like that, there have been a lot of people, thankfully, that have received it as that. But again, that outcome really isn't up to me. This was a little piece of art, an offering to the divine, you could say. And when I say divine, I'm saying humanity, because I think they're one and the same. This was an offering to humanity, to the divine. And so when it was done for me, Ayush, was when I had given my absolute all and best to it that I could at that moment in that time. I bled into this book. I sweat and teared into this book. And when I felt like I had nothing left to give for this chapter, this book, whatever you could say, I was done. I was spent. Like I had given it my very best at that time. If I started writing this book 8 years ago. So it's been quite a journey and process that we could talk about or not, but it was time to close the page. It was time to close the book, to close the chapter, and I knew that I could do that with peace once I had just bled everything I possibly could into this little work of art. I had nothing left to give. Now I'll likely write another book, and that's been kind of coming and forming and outlining in my mind. That's a whole new chapter, and that's a whole new process for me to go through. But yeah, when I just had nothing left to give to this piece, it was done for me, and that was quite clear. That happened. I launched the book August 19th, and I'd say that happened roughly 6 months before it came out. I was done. Like I had given everything I could to it. Yeah.
What is the feeling like of when you are done something and you have nothing else to give?
Yeah, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, where at the end of our lives, on our deathbeds or whatever the case may be, whether again AI is helping humanity transform and evolve, or whether AI is literally, I'll say, I don't believe this will happen, but it could happen, literally killing humanity off. Um, I think if we have given our very best efforts, we'll be at peace and we'll know that we followed our own heroic journey. We followed our own path. And so I think there will be peace in that. So I think it's a sense of inner peace that can only be found inside. It's not from any external source. Ayush, you could love the book or hate it. It's kind of none of my business. Yeah, like I'm at peace, and that's what matters. We are so conditioned. It's in the air we breathe to look outside of ourselves. I talk about the book about climbing my little mountain of success. Like I was a robot on the machine, building billion-dollar companies, serving on boards. I was a young father, serving in my faith tradition. I grew up Mormon or Christian, so serving in that regard. And I talk about getting to the top of this mountain, and there was nothing but a cold, howling wind. Only void and more void on top of that. And so it wasn't about any destination that I was headed to. It was about the journey. how I experienced the journey, how I was present in the journey or not. And so, if we can be present and live in non resistance to the journey that each of us is on and that humanity as a collective is on, and give our best, unique Ayush efforts, talents, whatever it is to the world, your unique magic, if you've given that freely, you can die in peace, brother. Like you did what, no matter the outcome, you did what you came here to do. You gave your best, and I think you can feel that. I think people feel that inside. The answers we're looking for are not outside of us. They're only inside of us.
Yeah, the external validation thing is something I've very recently learned. And you get to a very quiet acceptance and quiet euphoria because you realize that, it's funny, the first day of philosophy class, you learn about the brain and the vat, right? You learn about the external stimuli and how it could all be simulated. And to me,
Yeah.
it was so fascinating to link that into external validation because you really don't need anything else other than yourself in that way, whatever yourself is. And so the brain in the vat thing kind of collapses in an abstract way. Anyway, that's a complete tangent. You said you wrote this book, you started writing this book 8 years ago. 8 years
Yeah.
ago, books like Life 3.0, like Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom, like Human Compatible by Stuart Russell, these books were coming out. Well, Superintelligence was 2014, Life 3.0 was 2018, Human Compatible was 2019. Anyway, but what were you writing about? Because ChatGPT was not here until 5 years after you were
Yeah.
writing about it. Because you were writing about a different form of artificial intelligence that existed in culture in our minds. And then you probably had to update the
Yeah.
book. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me give you the quick kind of story just because I hope it resonates with some of your listeners. I think it will. I start the book in Varanasi, India, at the Ganges River, sitting there in this scene that just is so familiar to me. The next day, I flew to Tibet. I woke up that night at like 3 a.m. with the voice of God or the universe, my higher self, echoing in my ears. Jeff, you're a writer. And I was like, I'm not a writer. Jeff, you're a writer. You need to start writing. I'm running a multi-billion dollar private equity firm. I'm investing $100 million in venture capital. I am not a writer. I don't have time. Leave me alone. It wouldn't leave me alone. So after an hour of not being able to sleep, I quietly got up. My soulmate, Sally, my wife, was still in the bed asleep, and I quietly started plunking along. What I was writing there, I mean, like, it was the beginnings of this book, and I didn't know. I didn't know where I was headed. I didn't know what I was writing. Now, let me take it one step further. I came back, got busy running my companies, ran for governor, like I told you, in the state of Utah. And so I didn't spend a lot of time there. But when I lost the governor's race into the summer of 2020, I was 43 years old. And for the first time in my adult life, I had some space and time. I've been an adjunct professor at a local university down the street from me. It's called BYU. Um, I've been an adjunct professor there to thousands of entrepreneurial students the last 4 or 5 years. And one thing I often tell them is that with space and time, anything can be created. Anything can be created with space and time. If you don't have space and time, though, like it's hard to create anything. You're a human doing, not a human being. Like there's just no. But I had space and time in the summer of 2020 that I think a lot you could probably relate to. A lot of people could relate to. Like, wow, what's going on? And I had some space and time. That's when I came back to the book in full measure. That's when I dove back into the venture work that I had left for about 18 months to run a statewide campaign. And that's when AI became very strongly introduced into the book. As I dove into the technologies that were kind of sweeping the world at that time, hot, up and coming, AI was by far the most interesting to me not because of the opportunity to make money or to gain control or power, because of the spiritual implications that I immediately recognized it would have or could have for so much of humanity. When a machine can do so much of what I'm used to doing better than I can, who am I? What am I left with? I'm left with my being. I'm a human being. I get to be, we're not good at that a lot of times. In that being, we can reflect, go inside ourselves, and find things that we maybe never have appreciated or really relished or found before. So that was the process. And that's when there was one other step after that. But 5 years ago is when I really introduced AI into the book and started thinking in the way that I write there.
Beautiful. Um, well, the book is titled "The Last Book to Be Written by a Human," and it's going to be a little difficult and tricky to ask this question because it's a little dense, but we'll still try.
Mhm.
What is it?
Yeah.
What does it mean to write a book? Why do humans need to write books? Like that, I think you know energetically what I'm getting at, but what is the significance of a human writing a book, and why is that such an important thing to say, this is the last time a human will do this? You know, and why is
Yeah.
this the last time a human will do this? Like it's abstract, but go ahead.
The book was a number 7 national bestseller, USA Today. I think number 2 Publishers Weekly. I've sold a lot of copies. It's highly resonated with people. I'm so grateful for that. But the truth is, Ayush, the person who changed the most in writing this book was me. The person who, quote unquote, won the most, not because of copies sold. I'll lose money. You don't write a book to make money. There's no financial outcome or win for me in this book. There doesn't need to be, and that was never the plan. I don't want there to be. However, the gain was inside myself. I think it's critical for humans to continue to write because it's one of the ways that we express ourselves that can be the most transformative. It gives us space and time to work out our own issues, to think about our own trauma, to, you could say, reprogram ourselves, to deprogram and reprogram ourselves. Um, so to me, this was the last book written by a human. There's 2 reasons I named it that, but one of the reasons you hit right on, which is this book was written with such like human heart and soul. And as you pick it up or your listeners pick it up and read it, or if you listen to it on Audible, you're going to feel that heart and soul. Like you're going to resonate with some of my story will resonate with yours and you're going to feel it. That's human. In this AI driven world or whatever, you've seen it, you've felt it. It's a little flat. We know AI content when we see it. It's flat. It's almost too perfect. It's not messy enough. It's not like human. It's like machine and perfection. And so, yeah, there's real beauty in writing. There's real beauty in, working out things on the page. And again, I realized 6 months before I launched the book, we had a big launch. And of course, I believe in the message wholeheartedly. So I've been trying to get it out there in wisdom. But I had already won, quote unquote, because I was changed in the process of writing the book. Did you feel the same way, Ayush, as you write books? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, in all my writing, I try to make sure that I'm my most authentic self. In this
Hmm.
most recent book that I'm writing, The Transcendence of Money, I'm trying to make sure that I'm as raw as I can be. And it links back in an interesting way because as you use artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, you realize that the things that connect you with people is not the refined stuff. I think that's why we also hate social media influencers because it's all fucking refined. We don't like this.
Hmm.
We're not
Yeah.
interested. You are never going to actually enjoy hanging out with the person who has it all together. In
Yeah.
fact, the best stories are with the people that don't have it all together and are the most
Yeah.
raw, potentially dark, potentially comedic. Those real people,
Hmm.
those are the people we call authentic. Like Joey Diaz, for
Yeah.
example, if you're familiar with him. He doesn't
Yeah.
care, but we all love him because he doesn't care. Whereas, like
Yeah.
a politician, for example, and I should be careful because you may know some, but
Yeah. Oh, I know a lot, but yeah, we don't. This is one of the reasons we don't like our politicians. They're so inauthentic. They're not real.
they're not
Yeah.
real. And not to get political, but I think that's why a certain someone captured the quote unquote hearts and minds of the general public because of that
Yeah.
authenticity and rawness. But again, we don't have to go there. What is your
Yeah.
relationship to writing? Did you consult generative AI for this? What do you think about using generative AI for writing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be honest with you, it's one that I may not have delved into as much as you'd think so, because I wrote this entire book. And of course, did I feed it to AI? Yes. And like, but I just didn't write with AI. This entire book was written by a human. It was written by me. Except for, by the way, the little twist is that the foreword is written by ChatGPT. So you'll see how the foreword sets up the rest of the book, and it was written by a machine. It was not written by a human. The rest of it, though, was very much written by a human. And my process, I'm a first time author, first time writer. You could call deal making kind of an art. I see that, and I've done hundreds of deals in my career and life. So that was artistic in some way, and important because you're dealing with people and it's all about people. But this is by far the most kind of artistic endeavor I've had. And so one of the reasons that it took so long to write this book is I had to figure out my process. I had to figure out. And the biggest thing for me was to spend time in solitude or alone, like spend time being quiet in meditation and beautiful places, whatever, in prayer and contemplation. And then when the muse comes, when inspiration strikes, however you want to say it, I was at my keyboard writing away and writing my heart out. There's a lot of hours too that you just have to slog through it, and you're editing and you're rewriting and you don't feel inspired. You just got to kind of put in the hours, put in the effort, put in the sweat. But I'll tell you what, like when the muse strikes, like you got to be there in presence and ready to go. And I'd say that's where a lot of the beauty of the book came through. There's a lot of mechanics to get there, a lot of hours, a lot of sweat and tears. But I think the beauty comes when the muse is with you, when inspiration strikes. So you need to be a conduit of that inspiration. You need to feel it, number one, recognize it, and then number two, be able to translate that onto the page. And that's an art. It's not science. It's much more art. It's much more intuitive. It's much more feeling based. And so, yeah, I learned a ton about, I'm an art collector. I love modern art, especially, but so I learned a lot about the artistic process and writing this book, and I'm really, really grateful for it. It was a really good like learning experience for me, and a different like this is what I think I want to dedicate my life to. I'm the chairman of all my companies I've created. I have over 1,000 employees that I love and care about, and but I'm going to spend more time being this kind of weird solo artist, it seems, like I'm going to be releasing art into the world via books or whatever else may come. And so it's a little different. It's a different CEO and artist it's a different vibe. It's a different art form, you could say. And so yeah, I felt my way into this book via that. And I'm still learning. I still have so much, to learn and grow. But hopefully I answered your question. That was part of kind of my artistic process or some of it.
You're very spiritual, and it's uncomfortable because nobody in your position is spiritual. You talk with
Good.
such transparency and openness. And again, uncomfortable not in the negative connotation, but just I'm not used to
Yeah.
this. I'm not used to somebody with your credentials talking about the divine and the oneness. Those are two,
Yeah.
like you're in two separate camps right now. Where did you even get the confidence to have this openness and transparency? Because also you're a venture capitalist as well. And so is this
Yeah.
something where maybe secretly all venture capitalists are associated with the divine and the one? Like
I don't think
is that a
so.
conversation that
No, no,
happens?
not a lot. No, no. Number one, thank you for saying that. I wrote this book to be a conversation starter. I wrote this book to be, it's going to be triggering. There are a lot of people who have loved the book. I said that. There are some people who do not like the book, who have been triggered by it. And part of that, Ayush, is what you just, it's because of me. It's like, I can't fit Jeff into a box. I'm uncomfortable with this because where do I place Jeff? Is he the CEO and politician that I've known? Or is he this artist, spiritual leader guy that, as he talks and as I experience him now, which I think is some of what you were saying, um, let me just say that number one, I appreciate the compliment. I take it that way. Number two, I think we need bridges like this. I think we need leaders in politics, leaders in business to step into um, this quasi kind of spiritual role. We have to do it for humanity's sake. When robots are threatening our livelihood, threatening our existence, causing us to question our existence, our leaders need to dig deeper. They just can't be the like plan A, B, and C, go, do it. They can't just be the general. They have to be introspective. I think of Marcus Aurelius, and there are other great examples of this kind of these generals that were also spiritual. And all I can say is, and you know this feeling, and I'm so impressed with you at 24. Like you're way more, I had some outward success. I sold my first technology company to a NASDAQ listed firm, I think when I was 26, so about your age. But I'll tell you what, I was not put together. Like I wasn't thinking maybe as deeply as you are. So I'm really impressed by that. We need leaders who will think deeply. One of the points I make in the book is I think a different brand of leader is being prepared. And it's in your generation, Ayush. And, it's between our ages. They're being prepared for the new world that's coming. And I think this brand of leader will be maybe a little different than we're used to. I think we need, we used to, when we lived in tribes, the leader of the tribe was not only the, let's say, CEO, but they were the person with connection to the divine or transcendent that could, of course, run the organization or help manage the tribe and grow the tribe. But they did that through the lens of spirituality. They did that through a larger lens of like, wait a second, why are we really here? And where do we really want to go together? And so I think we're going to be returning to that. I know that's hard to maybe see in 2025, and maybe it's a pipe dream. Maybe I'm just like hoping we go there. I think we're going to be forced there because I think that we have so much pain, unfortunately, coming our way, generally speaking, that humanity will be forced to pivot back to this uh, general spiritual leader. And I think we'll see that ripple, I hope, across all our institutions.
No, I appreciate your compliments as well, but the logic that you're putting out is rather seamless throughout the conversation because what we're saying is artificial intelligence is going to replace a lot of the things that we have taken for granted as humans. Spiritually, it's going to replace a lot of the external validation and external things for humans. And so the natural thing is to, instead of focusing on the external, focus on the internal, and that is our quote unquote return to spirituality. But getting
Yeah.
there, because my friend Jared
Mhm.
Angaza would say, or he would talk about how in the indigenous languages, there's no actual word for spirituality. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
spiritual is for me to say like, oh, I am human. You would
Yeah.
agree, but you would also look at me why it feels redundant to say. And so spirituality
Yes.
in that way, I think we have to stop looking at in an ironic and meta way as an external thing and as an internal part
Yeah.
of our being and already an existing divine oneness. We have to be one with the spirit in some way. And so from that, we touched on a really interesting point, which is leadership. And leadership in a different way, because we just set up the environment where these leaders are going to come about. And as we know, humans are a blank slate and we conform to the environment, but we also change our environment, which we then conform to in an endless cycle, the birth and death and rebirth. What do we shape our, it's a two-part question. What do we shape our environment as to bring about the best leaders? And what do we teach those
Mhm.
leaders to bring about the best environment?
I love how you say there's no separation between existence and spirituality. That's what I totally agree. It's really kind of stupid for us to even say it because, like you said, it's redundant. So I think the best leaders and the leaders of the future will inherently understand that. And they won't just understand it in their mind, because it's less of a conceptual thing and more of a heart feeling. So, how does that feeling come? It comes from pain, it comes from transformation, it comes from picking yourself back up by the bootstraps when you lose a statewide race and very publicly. Um, it comes from addressing our own trauma. We're all programmed. Humans are so programmable. And it's obvious why that's the case. Things happen fast here in Utah. I have a 15-month-old grandson. My son's 24 as it's done. Thanks, man. And anyways, I won't even say his name, but he's completely vulnerable and helpless without us. Like, he would die. All humans would die quickly if they were not completely dependent on others. The point is, we are completely vulnerable and dependent, which means we are completely programmable. So we all get programmed. None of that programming is perfect. A lot of it is necessary. We need to learn to look both ways before we cross the street, to not touch a hot stove. But a lot of the programming is not correct. It's not perfect. So much of us live in unconscious patterns that we're not even aware of. These patterns run so much of our individual experience and our collective experience. We need pattern breakers. We need leaders to be wise pattern breakers, to break patterns in love, for love's sake, to speak the truth without fear, that don't have an ulterior motive. That's one of the nice things about me. I'm post-economic. I don't need to make any more money in my life. Um, I don't have a goal, even a desire necessarily to earn any more money. Those types of leaders can be powerful, and I'm not trying to necessarily like promote myself or put myself out there. I'm just saying these are the types of leaders that can be transformational, because why did I write this book? I could be at my beach place, at my lake place, at wherever. I could be drunk right now. I'm making stuff up. I could be doing whatever I want. I'm here sitting with you talking about important things. I'm here sweating my guts out to write this book. I'm here putting this very vulnerable book out that my parents don't like, some in my community don't like. Why am I doing? I'm doing this out of love and because I'm trying to play my little part and help humanity rise up. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but like I think those are the types of leaders that we need to look to promote, both in our corporations, we need to elect politically. And I think humans, I talk about in the book the end of the old game. I think we are crescendoing here to the end of the old game. This game where it was all about money, power, appearance, success, control. We are at the crescendo height of that game. At least I hope we are, and it feels like we are to me, if you know what I'm saying. And I think the only way to survive and thrive in the future that is coming is to pivot to a new game. And this new game is based on karma, authenticity, and love. And that's what I'm championing. That's what I'm traveling around the country right now, kind of promoting in this book. And that's where I think we need to return in order to thrive in the age of AI. Otherwise, I'm afraid we're going to just lose ourselves. So you lose ourselves to the machine, become a quote unquote slave to the machine. More and more of us will be living in this digital, non grounded world, not in our bodies, not connected to nature. And that's a dangerous place for humans to be.
I want to ask this question, but I don't mean it in a hostile way. But you were talking about,
Dude, I'm kind of non-offendable right now, if you can't tell. I can't be, if you can ask me I mean, I cover in the book from being a Mormon bishop, which I was, to psychedelic experiences, from tantric sex to, like, you can't offend me, dude. I span the gamut. So ask me whatever you
all right,
want. Yeah.
perfect. Then I'll be direct, but I won't be abrasive. Um, you know, for the conversation, you were talking about your venture capital and the billions. You just brought up the lake house and such. And again, those are all external things. And I
Yeah.
understand in terms of when we're making a point, we have to bring those things up. But if we can just explore it, what would it look like if we were talking about the power behind yourself, but we didn't use external metrics or external validational metrics? Because I always also find there's like not a it's kind of like a meta contradiction that we're championing internal progress, but still using the external validators that other people look for. And so, especially for
Yeah.
my generation and for myself, I'm also looking at my own followers and my own bank account and my own external digital or physical metrics. And I don't want to do that because that's how the world runs right now, but that's not what we want the world to continue to run on. And so if we are to
Yeah.
change the direction, if we are to change the energy, how do we put forth a message or put forth an agenda or framework that transcends the external and starts seeping into the internal?
Yeah. Let me say before I say that, I told you it's in the air we breathe. So some of what I've said may almost be unconscious or in my subconscious. We have an hour or whatever we're going to talk here. I'm trying to give people a context for me, for my life experience, and for the book, so that if it resonates with them, they can check it out. We can talk and we can work on, I'm going to say, quote unquote, saving the world together, whatever we're working, making the world a better place together. So I'm not aware that I'm like saying things in order, but let me just say I might be. And that's just because it's in the air. I have had 48 years of like living in the material world. Now, let me ask, so that's the first thing. It's kind of an apology and a blanket kind of like I may be doing this without even like really knowing. I'm not trying to though. Again, I'm trying to give context in a short amount of time. Let me just say, so let me ask you a question. We know where we're headed to the new game, as I described, and you just described it in your own words. Your generation knows where we are headed. You feel it deeply in your bones. And I think, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I think the strife or the struggle that you feel inside is because the world is so far from where you know we need to go right now. Um, I'm not talking about a violent revolution here. I'm talking about a radical transformation. And I think that your generation and mine will be part of that transformation in as much as we realize that none of what we are seeking, none of what really matters is outside of ourselves. Everything that matters, all the answers and everything we're really seeking already resides inside of us. Okay, so that's the truth. However, we live physically grounded. As we're embodied, we are in this world. So I can't just say money doesn't matter at all. I don't need to I don't need to eat. I just am so spiritual. I don't need food anymore. I'm making shit up, like I don't need to sleep. I do, no, we need to accept the reality that we are physical beings in a 3D physical world. So, how do I work in the world wisely, which means money, job, schedules, meetings, whatever, responsibilities, yet show up always or as consistently as possible in the present spiritual moment. So it doesn't matter if I'm talking to Ayush on the podcast, or I'm going to the dentist, or I'm closing a deal. I am trying to be as present and in my spiritual awareness as possible in every single thing I'm doing. So if I were to give, and you're not asking, but again, I've had thousands of students your age and younger, 18 to 24. If I were to give you advice, I would just say, dude, hold on to your morals, hold on to your vision of the future, because you're right on. However, don't forget, dude, we exist in a physical world, and that means you need to deal with the physical world sometimes. You need to sleep. and take care of yourself. You need to feed yourself good food. You need to make money so that you can survive and, have a roof over your head, whatever else. Like that is part of the game. If this was just a spiritual game where like none of that mattered, that's too easy. We're past that. Like we maybe experience that, let's say in another cosmic state after death. That's not the state we're in right now. We're in a physically grounded world. And so it's an art, more of an art, less of a science, to have one foot in like both realms consistently. And don't get me wrong, it's hard as it can be hard. I'm not claiming to be a master at it. I'm claiming to have gotten a lot better at it, but I'm not claiming to be a master. But it's important to have a foot in both worlds, to hold on to your ideals, to know what you feel inside, to know where we're headed, but to realize the way we get there is in this 3D physical world. This is our reality right now, and we need to get there in the world. That doesn't mean we can't change some of the rules. It doesn't mean our institutions can't evolve, but it means that the way we do that matters. And it again, I'm not calling for like violent revolution in my book. I'm calling for a spiritual transformation.
When you went through the loss politically and publicly, what did that do to your being?
It quieted my being. Fortunately or not, it feels like humans, we need pain often to change. I'd been on a little heater in my career, like just kind of win, 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 just fortunate timing, luck, blessings. I don't know, karma, call it what I'd made really good decisions, investment decisions and business decisions. So it was good for me to experience a loss and a very public defeat at that. It was good for my kids to see me lose and to see how I reacted. Um, Loss creates opportunity for everything. Pain hollows us out and creates space for something greater. So, as I looked back, and this was only clear to me about a year after the loss, I looked back very clearly and I realized, because I often asked myself, I was kind of at the height, I was 43 years old or 41, 42 when I decided to run. All my companies were like humming. I was kind of at the top of my game and ready to go, let's say, into the biggest decade of earning in my life and influence and whatever else. Why did I feel so compelled to run for governor? Why did I run for governor? By the way, when I made the like pluses and minuses, I didn't really do that, but when I weighed the pluses and minuses to run or not, let me tell you something that was not on the list, a global pandemic. I didn't even know what a global pandemic was. Like, I didn't know that was coming. I had no, and if I had, by the way, I would have never run because that made it impossible actually for an outsider like for me to win. Whenever markets are disrupted, we see this in financial markets all the time, but it's also in political markets and otherwise. Whenever there's great disruption in markets, there's a natural flight to safety. So, in a political environment that is so disrupted with the pandemic, there is no way a political outsider like me could win, at least in Utah. There was no way. We were going to be conservative. We were going to choose the names we know. We were going to go that way. So, I often ask myself, why did I get into that mess? I mean, I raised $1.5 million to $2 million from friends and family, mainly friends in my network that supported me. I love those people. I'm grateful for them. I matched every dollar that came into my campaign. So I raised 2 million, matched 2 million. I spent $4 million, and with the pandemic, that was all gone in an instant. So, anyways, why did this happen? This is a long wind up. I'm telling you too much, but looking back clearly, which is always the case, you can always look back with like perfect vision. I know exactly my subconscious was taking me off the stage. I had built this little stage of success for myself, and that stage completely disintegrated and went away. And with you could call it a death. And with that death, I was able to rebirth myself in hopefully a better way. And the point I tell that whole long story, this doesn't have to be a gubernatorial campaign. This doesn't have to be anything big. This happens to us naturally and constantly in the world we live in. And again, we get those opportunities of death to rebuild ourselves in, I would say, a quote unquote more holy, more beautiful way. So that's what I've been trying to do. Reconstruction via deconstruction. That's how it works. And that's what we're up against, humans, by the way. Reconstruction via deconstruction. AI is going to continue to deconstruct us so that we can be reborn as something new and different and better, more aligned with love and unity. Anyway, I feel like I'm preaching now, but
It's
anyways.
great. I mean, returning to the roots, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
one of the new questions I want to ask you, just trying it out for this first podcast, feel energetically connected with you, so I feel safe to ask, is
Yeah.
what do you wish I had asked you in this conversation?
The best question that I've been asked, so I actually don't want you to ask this question because I don't have a perfect answer for it. But the best question I've been asked, I've been on about 100 podcasts the last 3 months as I launched the book. The best question I've been asked, probably five of the 100 have asked me this. It's a really good question, which is, oh, it's kind of like, Jeff, yeah, that's easy for you to say because you've climbed the mountain of success. You've kind of arrived there. I have never used this term on a podcast before, and it might be offensive. And, you said you're post-economic. Well, great. I'm not. No one else is, or most of us aren't. This is all easy for you to say and do. That's a really good question. Like, is it easier for you to have this outlook because you've had success? And I could give you a one word answer, which I think is yes. However, I think it's nuanced because often with success, you start to think you have all the answers. Like, I can do nothing wrong. I know everything. Oh, you don't believe me? Look at my worldly success. That's a fault. I will call that a quote unquote false God that most successful people lean into and hold on to, and it's just bullshit. It's just not true. It's not right. It's not, and sometimes I think that can hinder the work that I've been talking about. Another hindrance, though, obviously, and the hardest place to be economically, is when you're worried about the next day. Like, how am I going to feed my family the next day? Like, poverty. That is the worst place to be in because all you can think about is the day to day. You have no time to, like, try to expand. You're just surviving. That's the hardest place. The second hardest place might be where I'm at, which is I've had a lot of success and I could be very full of myself and think I have all the answers. Regardless, anyways, my point of this is to say, have I been blessed, fortunate, privileged? Absolutely. Do I acknowledge that? Absolutely. Does it make it easier? Yeah, I think it does. However, it doesn't, it's kind of the wrong question because whether you're the CEO or the janitor, and I've been all of those, by the way, and everything in between, the work is the same. The work, Ayush, that you and I and every other human being has to do is the same. It's this work of transformation that we've been talking about following our own heroic journey, about going inside of ourselves, about healing our own trauma, and then reprogramming ourselves and showing up in a better way. That work is the same, no matter where you're at. So, anyways, that's a good question that's been asked. It's a hard one for me to answer because I have been so fortunate. But that's just an honest take on it. And I really do think kind of like, are we going to make it or not? It doesn't really matter. Our best efforts are worth it no matter the outcome. This is another one, kind of those. Is it easier because you have some means? Yes, it probably is, but it doesn't matter. The work is the same. Like the work is the same for all of us to do.
I appreciate that perspective because it shows cognizance in a time where a lot of people don't have that, regardless of their economic situation. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I get it. Yeah, thanks, man.
If you could wave a magic wand and solve one problem in the world, what would it be and why?
I mean, this is going to be a little bit of an esoteric or woo-woo answer, but it's the truth. It would be unity and love versus division and hate. I would have people, let's say, I guess, know or feel what I feel, which is Ayush. Again, despite all our differences, we're the same. We're connected. And no matter our differences, socioeconomic, gender, sexual orientation, list them all off, political persuasion, that those differences are here for diversity and beauty. We're the same. We're much more alike than we are different. With any time we're with another human being, that is the case. And so I would want the entire world, 8 billion plus, to have a felt sense of that, to not just say it with words or put it on a poster with kittens or whatever stupid stuff we're doing. I want people to have this felt sense that, oh, yeah, like my belief, and we've gotten spiritual, hopefully this is okay in this podcast. I believe that God, the creator, source, the universe, whatever you want to choose, is manifesting itself through infinite life forms, but that in the end, we're all source, we're all divine. We are the universe experiencing itself, waking up to itself, remembering who we are and what reality really is. Like that's the game, quote unquote, non-trivial game that we are all playing. So, how do we want to play it together, man? I think that that paradigm shift changes like everything. Like it doesn't mean that there won't be any competition. It doesn't mean that there won't be differences of opinion, but what it means is we come to those differences with an open heart and with a fuller understanding of like who we're working with and how we're connected and how we see each other in the world. That's what I'd change, man. I hope the book, I know that the book in little pockets is opening that up or changing that. I really hope that this book continues to evolve and grow and change that for some people because I think that through that lens we can make more progress together than when we're divided.
Last question. What gives you hope in the world?
Yeah, my hope, I would say, is based on an eternal perspective, if that makes sense, Ayush. Meaning, I don't think God has, again, I'm using just like words to describe imperfect words to describe things that are like ineffable. This is why it's called the great mystery, is because you can't really put words around it. You see you nodding. I think you know what I'm saying. Um, but the words that I would put around it is that I don't think God has set us up to lose or fail. Like this is going to work out. It may not work out in this iteration. We may be restarting this whole experiment up again. This may be the reset button here with AI, whether that's, I'm making this up, in a year, a decade, 100 years, who knows? I don't know. We may just be in a little restart place. But I hope that's not the case. And my point is, in the long term, again, I'll say eternal perspective, it's going to be okay. We're going to work it out. We're going to remember who we are. We're going to come back to ourselves. We're going to experience what I talk about in the book. And again, this is kind of crass, and it's a worldly, like, we're going to experience the cosmic orgasm again. Like, we're going to all be together in unity at the rave. I'm making shit up, partying, like, yes, we did this and it's fun. It feels good. We forgot who we are and we remembered and we came back together. We worked out our differences. We solved our problems. Isn't this awesome? Okay, let's try it again. Let's see if we can do it again in this iteration or this form or whatever. So that's what gives me hope is like, I don't know if we're going to make it, broadcasting here from Earth in the year 2025. I don't know if we're going to make it, but I'm going to do my damnedest to like make sure we do or to try to make sure we do. And I hope, I know there are a lot of other people doing that. I hope there are more joining those ranks like all the time. But in the whether it works out this time or not isn't just up to me. I don't think. I mean, I think it's up to us together. I think the future is unwritten. Like we write it together as we go. And so my point is, in the end, quote unquote, if it's not okay, it's not the end, right? Like who said that? John Lennon or something? Like in the end, it's gonna work out. So like we're gonna work it out, whether it's this time around or next time around. I hope that might be too woo-woo and not make sense, but hopefully it makes sense to you.
We need more woo-woo in this world. Jeff, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Where can we find you? Where can we find your book online?
Yeah, Ayush, I appreciate, like I said, anytime we're with another human being, it's just beautiful. And so it's good to meet you in Montreal. It's good to be with you. I respect what you're doing and love that. Yeah, if you feel the book, if you feel me, you can check it out anywhere books are sold. The last book written by a human, Becoming Wise in the Age of AI. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target, wherever. And the best way to follow me is my website, Jeff Burningham, like burningaham.com. And I have very mixed feelings about social media, obviously, but I'm trying to go to where the people are. So I'm at pretty much every platform at Jeff Burningham. I'm not hard to find. Google me, look at the book, read it, and then share your thoughts with me. Like I said, I wanted this book to be a conversation starter like this that leads to a movement. I'll say one last thing. At the end of the book, I talk about a political movement. I call it the human political movement. And if we feel that, that's a lane we could go down or something like that. This human political movement that is based around our divine unity and is based on human flourishing and not division.
I love that. Jeff, I feel very connected with you. Thank you so much for taking the stab at being open and transparent, especially in a time where that is not the case anymore. And
Thanks, man.
you're really the one person that I've found recently that is so okay with being open and transparent. And I think that is the most meta way to end of talking about being human in the age of artificial intelligence. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ayush.